Marcus Wellington III stood on the 47th floor of Wellington Tower, staring at the city below. At 42 years old, he had everything: a billion-dollar tech empire, luxury cars, and respect from everyone who knew his name. But something felt empty inside him. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Marcus walked into his favorite coffee shop, the one where they knew his order by heart. Triple espresso, no sugar, in a hurry. Always in a hurry. Your usual, Mr. Wellington, said Sarah, the barista. Sliding the cup across the counter, Marcus grabbed it without looking up from his phone. Important emails, board meetings, stock prices. His world revolved around numbers and deals. As he turned toward the door, Marcus bumped into someone. Hot coffee splashed across his $1,000 suit. He looked up, ready to unleash his anger. Before him stood an old homeless man, maybe 70 years old, with worn clothes and tired eyes. But those eyes held something unusual, wisdom and calm that Marcus had never seen before. What? Watch where you're going. Marcus snapped, brushing coffee from his jacket. The old man smiled gently. I'm sorry, son, but maybe you're the one not watching where you're going? Marcus stopped. People never talked to him like that. They feared him, respected him, but never challenged him. Excuse me. Do you know who I am? The homeless man tilted his head. I know what you are. But do you? Something about those words struck Marcus like lightning. Before he could respond, the man reached into his ragged pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Take this, the old man said, pressing it into Marcus's hand. Read it when you're ready to see the truth. I don't need advice from someone living on the street, Marcus said. But his fingers closed around the notebook anyway. The homeless man looked directly into Marcus's eyes. 30 years ago, I stood where you stand now. Same tower, same empire, same emptiness. I learned something that cost me everything but gave me peace. Marcus laughed nervously. You in Wellington Tower? That's impossible, is it? The old man smiled again. Your building used to be called Riverside Tower. Office 4701 had a crack in the northeast window. There was a coffee stain on the carpet near the conference table that never came out, no matter how many times they cleaned it. Marcus felt his blood run cold. That stain was still there. He had it covered with a rug because it bothered him. How could this homeless man know such details? Who are you? Marcus whispered, his arrogance melting away. Gosh, someone who learned that success without purpose is just expensive failure, the old man replied. Read the notebook. In 3 days, meet me at Riverside Park, bench number 7, at sunset. If you dare. Before Marcus could ask more questions, the man disappeared into the morning crowd, leaving Marcus standing in the coffee shop, holding a mysterious notebook and countless questions. Asterisk back in his office, Marcus couldn't focus on work. The notebook sat on his desk, calling to him. Finally, during lunch, he opened it. The first page had just one sentence written in elegant handwriting. What you chase runs away. What you give away comes back multiplied. Marcus closed it quickly. Nonsense. Philosophy from someone who clearly failed at life. He had real work to do. Asterisk. But throughout the day, those words haunted him. During his afternoon meeting, when he fired an employee for missing sales targets, he remembered the sentence. When he rejected a charity request from his assistant, he heard the words again. That evening, alone in his penthouse apartment, Marcus opened the notebook again. This time, he kept reading. Asterisk page after page revealed wisdom about life, success, and happiness. Stories about people who had everything but felt nothing. Questions that made Marcus uncomfortable. When was the last time you helped someone who couldn't help you back? Do you have real friends or just useful contacts? What will people say about you when you're gone? Marcus poured himself expensive whiskey, but it tasted bitter. For the first time in years, he looked around his apartment and saw it differently. Beautiful furniture, but no family photos. Expensive art, but no memories. Success everywhere, but no joy. Asterisk 3 days felt like 3 years. Marcus tried to focus on work, but his mind kept returning to the homeless man and his mysterious words. Who was he? How did he know about the tower? What happened to him 30 years ago? Finally, on the third day, Marcus made a decision. He would go to Riverside Park, not because he believed the man, but because he needed answers. His curiosity had been awakened, and Marcus Wellington III always got what he wanted. As the sun began to set, Marcus left his office early for the first time in 5 years. His assistant looked shocked. His board members whispered, but Marcus didn't care. Something bigger than business was calling him. Walking toward Riverside Park. Marcus had no idea that his entire world was about to be turned upside down. The homeless man's secret would challenge everything he believed about success, wealth, and what truly matters in life. Marcus Wellington walked through Riverside Park as the sun painted the sky orange and gold. His designer shoes felt uncomfortable on the dirt path. He usually drove everywhere, never walking through parks like ordinary people. Bench number 7 sat under an old oak tree, away from the busy paths. The homeless man was already there, feeding pigeons from a paper bag. He looked peaceful, content in a way Marcus had never felt despite all his wealth. "You came," the old man said without looking up. "I wasn't sure you would." Marcus sat down, keeping distance between them. "I need answers." "Who are you really?" The homeless man smiled and finally looked at Marcus. "My name is Thomas. Thomas Riverside." Marcus's heart stopped. Riverside. As in Riverside Corporation? But that company collapsed 30 years ago. The founder disappeared and everyone assumed he died or ran away with the money, Thomas finished. "I didn't either. I walked away from it all." "The impossible story, that's insane," Marcus said, standing up. Thomas Riverside was worth billions. He had everything. Why would anyone walk away from that? Thomas continued feeding the pigeons. "Sit down, Marcus. Let me tell you a story about a man who had everything and nothing at the same time." Something in his voice made Marcus sit back down. Thomas began speaking, his eyes distant, remembering. 30 years ago, I was you. Younger, maybe more arrogant. Riverside Corporation owned half the city. I had 3 ex-wives, children who called me sir instead of dad, and friends who only wanted my money. I worked 18 hours every day. Missed birthdays, anniversaries, and school plays. My daughter once told me she wished I was poor so I'd have time for her. I laughed and bought her a car instead. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He had no children, but he recognized himself in every word. Thomas's voice grew softer. Then came the day that changed everything. My son Michael was 22. Brilliant, kind, everything I wasn't. He called me one Tuesday afternoon, said he needed to talk about something important. I told him I was busy. Big merger happening. Couldn't be disturbed. He said it was urgent. I said we'd talk on the weekend. Thomas paused, his hands trembling slightly. Marcus noticed tears forming in the old man's eyes. Died that night. Car accident, on the way home from my office. He had driven 2 hours just to see me, and I sent him away. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "I'm sorry, I didn't know, ... Thomas reached into his coat and pulled out a yellowed envelope. The police found this letter in his car. He was going to give it to me. With shaking hands, Thomas opened it and began reading. "Dad, I know you're busy building your empire, but I need you to know something. I'm getting married next month. I wanted you to walk me down the aisle. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just my dad. That's all I ever wanted, just my dad." "My son was getting married," Thomas whispered, "and I didn't even know. I was so focused on making money that I forgot to live." Marcus stared at his own hands, thinking about all the calls he'd ignored, all the people he'd pushed away for meetings and deals. "What happened next?" Marcus asked quietly. "I stood at my son's funeral and looked around," Thomas continued. "Hundreds of people came, but they all loved him. At my funeral, thousands would come, but they'd only love my money. That's when I realized I'd built the wrong empire. The day after the funeral, I called my lawyers. I divided everything, money to my ex-wives, trust funds for my remaining children, donations to charities Michael loved. I kept nothing except what fit in a backpack. Marcus couldn't believe it. You gave away billions? Just like that? Just like that, Thomas nodded. And I walked away. Started living on the streets, helping people, really talking to them, learning what matters. Thomas turned to face Marcus directly. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you were truly happy? Not excited about a deal or proud of an achievement. Actually happy? Deep in your soul? Marcus opened his mouth to answer, but realized he couldn't remember. When was the last time? Years ago? Maybe never. I see it in your eyes, Thomas said gently. The same emptiness I had. You're climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall, Marcus. And the higher you climb, the worse the fall will be. Asterisk. So what? Marcus said defensively. You want me to give everything away and live on the streets? That's your solution? No, Thomas said firmly. I'm not telling you my path is yours. I'm telling you to find your own path before it's too late. Before you get a call, you can't answer. Before you lose something, you can't buy back. Marcus felt angry, confused, and strangely moved all at once. This is ridiculous. I'm successful. I'm powerful. I'm alone, Thomas finished. Rich and alone. Successful and empty. Powerful and afraid. Those words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought about his empty apartment, his contacts who weren't friends, his life that was all work and no joy. I don't know how to change, Marcus admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. Thomas smiled warmly. That's the first step, admitting you're lost. The second step is choosing to find a new direction. The notebook I gave you, Thomas said, wasn't just random wisdom. Every page is a lesson I learned after walking away. Every question is one I ask myself. I've given 7 notebooks away over the years to people like you, people standing at the edge of the same cliff I fell from. What happened to them? Marcus asked. 3 ignored it and continued their path. I heard 2 of them died alone, despite their wealth. 1 lost everything in a scandal. But 4 of them changed. They found balance, purpose, real happiness. They're not billionaires anymore, but they're rich in ways that matter. Thomas stood up, preparing to leave. I'm giving you the same chance I gave them. For the next 30 days, I challenge you to do 3 things every day. Marcus stood too, listening carefully. First, help 1 person who can never repay you. Second, spend 1 hour doing something that makes you happy but makes no money. Third, have 1 real conversation with someone, not about business, about life. That's it? Marcus asked skeptically. That's it, Thomas confirmed. Simple, but not easy. If after 30 days you feel nothing has changed, go back to your life. But if something shifts inside you, if you start seeing the world differently, then we'll talk again. As Thomas turned to walk away, Marcus called out, Wait, why me? Why did you choose to talk to me in that coffee shop? Thomas looked back with knowing eyes. Because you bumped into me, Marcus. Or maybe I bumped into you. Either way, the universe was trying to wake you up. I'm just the messenger. And if I fail this challenge? Marcus asked. You won't fail, Thomas said with a sad smile. You'll either change or stay the same. Both are choices, not failures. But only one leads to real life. Marcus watched Thomas disappear into the evening shadows, leaving him alone on bench number 7. The park had grown quiet. The sun had set completely. In the darkness, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty mixed with hope. He pulled out his phone to call his driver. Then stopped. Instead, he started walking home. It was 5 miles, but for the first time in forever, Marcus Wellington wanted to see his city not from a car window, but from ground level, where real people lived their real lives as he walked. He passed a young woman crying on a bench, a homeless veteran asking for help, and a small family sharing pizza on the grass. Each person was a world he'd never noticed before. The challenge had begun. Whether Marcus was ready or not, Marcus woke up the next morning in his king-size bed, staring at the ceiling. The challenge seemed silly in the bright morning light. Help someone who can't repay you. Spend an hour on something that makes no money. Have a real conversation. He almost laughed. He had a company to run, millions to make. Wow. And no time for Thomas's philosophical games. But as he showered and dressed, his son's letter kept echoing in his mind. I just wanted my dad. A man died wanting something so simple, and his father was too busy to give it. Marcus arrived at his office building at 7:30 as always. The same security guard sat at the desk, the same one who'd worked there for 15 years. Marcus had never learned his name. Today he stopped. Good morning. What's your name? The guard looked surprised. Robert, sir. Robert Martinez. How long have you worked here, Robert? 15 years next month, Mr. Wellington. Marcus noticed Robert's lunchbox, old and dented. Do you have children, Robert? 3, sir. 2 in college, 1 in high school. It's expensive, but we manage. Something clicked in Marcus's mind. Here was someone who worked hard, who had dreams for his children. Marcus had walked past him thousands of times without seeing him. Robert, I want you to do something for me, Marcus said. Go to the HR department today. Tell them I'm authorizing a special scholarship fund for employees' children. Your kids will have their college fully paid for. Robert's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I don't know what to say. Why would you do this? Marcus remembered Thomas's words. Help someone who can never repay you. Because you've been loyal for 15 years, and I never noticed. Consider this my apology for being blind. As Marcus walked to the elevator, he felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Joy. Pure, simple joy from making someone happy without expecting anything back. That evening, Marcus faced his second challenge. Spend 1 hour doing something that makes you happy, but makes no money. He sat in his apartment, surrounded by expensive things, and realized he didn't know what made him happy anymore. Everything he did was about money, power, or success. Then he remembered. As a teenager, before the business consumed him, he loved to paint. His mother had encouraged it, but his father called it a waste of time. Marcus had given it up to focus on real work. Marcus went to an art supply store for the first time in 30 years. The young woman at the counter helped him pick brushes, paints, and a canvas. She talked excitedly about colors and techniques. She had no idea who he was, and it felt wonderful. Back home, Marcus sat up in his living room and began to paint. His hand felt clumsy at first, but slowly, something emerged on the canvas. Not a building or a chart, but a sunset over Riverside Park. He painted for 2 hours, completely losing track of time. When he finally stopped, his expensive suit had paint stains, and he didn't care. For the first time in decades, Marcus had created something beautiful with no purpose except beauty itself. The third challenge proved hardest. Have a real conversation, not about business, about life. Marcus looked at his phone contacts. Hundreds of names, but who could he call? His lawyer? His accountant? His board members? Every relationship was transactional. Then he thought of Sarah, the barista from the coffee shop. She always smiled, always asked how his day was, though he never really answered. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the coffee shop earlier than usual. Only a few customers sat scattered around. Sarah greeted him with her usual warm smile. The usual, Mr. Wellington. Actually, Sarah, I'd like to try something different today. What do you recommend? Sarah's eyes widened with surprise. Really? Well, I love our caramel macchiato with oat milk. It's sweet, but not too sweet. I'll try that. And Sarah, do you have a minute to talk? She looked around the quiet shop. Sure, Mr. Wellington. Is everything okay? Please call me Marcus. And yes, everything's fine. I just realized I've been coming here for 3 years, and I don't know anything about you. Tell me about yourself. Sarah sat across from him, cautious at first, then warming up as Marcus genuinely listened. I moved here from a small town to become a writer. This job pays the bills while I work on my novel at night. What's your novel about? Marcus asked, surprising himself with his genuine interest. Sarah's face lit up. It's about connection in a disconnected world. about people who live side by side but never really see each other. Marcus felt the irony hit him. That's exactly what I've been doing, isn't it? Not seeing people. We all do it sometimes, Sarah said kindly. Life gets busy, but the fact that you're here now, really talking, that's what matters. Over the next week, Marcus continued his 3 daily challenges. Each day brought new discoveries. He paid for a stranger's groceries when her card was declined. The woman cried and hugged him, saying her children would eat that night. Marcus had spent more on a single lunch before. This $50 meant everything to her. He started taking piano lessons, something he'd always wanted to do. His teacher, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, treated him like any other student. She corrected his mistakes firmly and praised his progress genuinely. No one had talked to Marcus like that in years. He had lunch with his assistant, Jennifer, who'd worked for him for 8 years. He learned she had a disabled sister she cared for, that she loved gardening, and that she'd once dreamed of being a teacher. Marcus had known none of this. 2 weeks into the challenge, Marcus received a surprise visit. His daughter Emma appeared at his office. He hadn't seen her in 2 years, not since their last argument about him missing her graduation. Marcus stood up, shocked. What brings you here? She looked at him cautiously. Robert, the security guard. He called me, said something had changed in you. I didn't believe it, but I decided to see for myself. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I'm glad you came. Would you like to have dinner? Not a business dinner, just father and daughter? Emma studied his face, looking for the catch. No business talk? No business talk. I want to hear about your life, your dreams, everything I've missed. That evening at a small Italian restaurant Emma loved, Marcus learned about his daughter's life. She worked at a nonprofit helping underprivileged children. She had a boyfriend named David, a teacher. She wanted to adopt someday. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Marcus asked. Emma looked down at her pasta. Dad, every time I tried to talk to you about my life, you changed the subject to stocks or business deals. Eventually, I stopped trying. Marcus felt shame wash over him. I'm sorry, Emma. I was so focused on building an empire that I forgot to build a relationship with my own daughter. What changed? Emma asked directly. Robert said you've been different, kinder, actually seeing people. Marcus told her about Thomas, the challenge, and his journey over the past 2 weeks. Emma listened, her expression shifting from skepticism to surprise to something that looked like hope. You know what I always wanted? Emma said, tears forming in her eyes. Not your money or your success. Just a dad who showed up, who remembered my birthday, who asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. I want to be that dad, Marcus said, his own voice breaking. If you'll give me a chance? Emma reached across the table and took his hand. Dad, I've wanted this for 28 years. Of course I'll give you a chance. Marcus continued his transformation. Changes rippled through Wellington Corporation. He started company programs for employee well-being, including mental health support and flexible work hours. He created the scholarship fund for all employees' children, not just Robert's. His board members questioned these decisions. This will cost millions, his CFO protested. Ain't, it will build loyalty worth billions, Marcus replied. But more importantly, it's the right thing to do. These people give their lives to this company. We should give something meaningful back. Some board members threatened to resign. Marcus let them go and replaced them with people who understood his new vision: profit with purpose, success with soul. By day 25, Marcus barely recognized his own life. He worked normal hours, leaving time for piano lessons, painting, and dinner with Emma twice a week. He knew the names of his building's cleaning staff and stopped to chat with them. He joined Sarah at her writing group, offering genuine feedback on her novel chapters. He volunteered at Emma's nonprofit, reading to children every Thursday afternoon. His bank account remained massive, but now it served a purpose beyond just growing larger. Marcus had started seeing money as a tool for good rather than a measure of worth. On day 28, disaster struck. A rival company launched a hostile takeover attempt. They'd noticed Marcus's weakness, as they called his new humanitarian approach. They saw an opportunity to strike while he was distracted by charity. Marcus's old self would have fought ruthlessly, destroyed careers, and done whatever it took to win. His new self faced a different question. What would Thomas do? That evening, sitting at his piano instead of his desk, Marcus realized something profound. He could fight this battle without becoming a monster. He could defend his company while keeping his soul. The next morning, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. I know you're worried about the takeover attempt. I'm not. Because I've realized something. If we lose this company, we can build another. But if we lose ourselves in the fight, we've lost everything. So we're just giving up. A board member asked incredulously. No, Marcus smiled. We're fighting smart, not dirty. We're going to show our shareholders, employees, and the public why Wellington Corporation is worth fighting for. Not because we make the most money, but because we make the most difference. As the meeting dispersed, Marcus felt no fear. Whatever happened, he'd already won something more valuable than any company himself. Marcus walked through Riverside Park as the sun began to set, just like 30 days ago. But everything felt different now. The trees seemed greener, the children's laughter sounded sweeter, and the world felt alive in a way he'd never noticed before. Bench number 7 waited under the old oak tree. Thomas sat there, feeding pigeons again, as if no time had passed at all. You came back, Thomas said, patting the bench beside him, and you look different. Marcus sat down, feeling lighter than he had in years. I am different. These 30 days changed everything. Tell me, Thomas said simply. And Marcus began. He told Thomas about Robert and the scholarship fund, about painting until 3 in the morning and not caring about the lost work hours, about Sarah's writing group and learning that success comes in many forms. He told him about Emma, about dinners where they laughed and cried, about meeting David and realizing his daughter had chosen a good man, the kind of man Marcus used to think was weak but now understood was strong, and the takeover attempt, Thomas asked with a knowing smile. Marcus smiled. That was the real test, wasn't it? Could I fight without becoming the old Marcus? What did you do? I made a video, Marcus explained. Not a corporate statement, but a real message. I talked about my journey, about meeting you, about learning what really matters. I admitted my company had been soulless, focused only on profit. But I explained how we'd changed. Thomas listened intently as Marcus continued. I invited the rival CEO to visit our company, to see the scholarship program, the mental health support, the volunteer initiatives. I challenged him. You can buy our buildings and our brand, but you can't buy the heart we've built. Join us in creating something better. Or fight us and prove that greed still wins. The video went viral, Marcus said, shaking his head in amazement. Millions of views. Thousands of comments from people saying they were tired of heartless corporations. Our employees shared it. Their families shared it. And suddenly, everyone was watching. And the takeover. Marcus grinned. Our stock price actually went up. Shareholders realized that companies with soul are better long-term investments. But the best part? The rival CEO called me. He wants to meet next week to discuss collaboration instead of competition. Thomas clapped his hands together. Marcus, you've learned something that took me decades to understand. True power isn't controlling others. It's inspiring them. But I have to ask you something, Marcus said, his voice growing serious. These 30 days have been incredible, but they've also been hard. Some nights, I wanted to quit, to go back to my old life where everything was simple and predictable. How do I make sure I don't slip back? Thomas nodded thoughtfully. That's the real question, isn't it? Change is easy for a day, a week, even a month. But maintaining it for a lifetime? That's the true challenge. He reached into his coat and pulled out another notebook, this one newer than the first. This is for you. It's blank. Every day, I want you to write 3 things. 1 act of kindness you did, 1 moment of joy you experienced, and 1 real connection you made. When you fill this notebook, come find me again. I'll give you another. Marcus took the notebook, feeling its weight. Thomas, can I ask you something personal? Do you ever regret it? Walking away from everything? Thomas was quiet for a long moment, watching the sunset paint the sky. Every day for the first 5 years, I regretted it. I was angry at myself, at the world, at fate. I slept in shelters and ate at soup kitchens, and I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. What changed? I helped a young boy, Thomas said softly. He was homeless with his mother, scared and hungry. I gave him my dinner, and he smiled at me like I'd given him the world. That night, sleeping on a bench, I realized something. When I was a billionaire, I could have fed 1,000 children, but I never did. Now, with nothing, I'd fed one, and that one mattered. Over the years, I've helped hundreds of people, Thomas continued, not with money, but with time, attention, and care. I've attended weddings of people I met on the streets, been invited to birthday parties in tiny apartments, and received Christmas cards from families I'll never forget. He looked at Marcus with clear eyes. I'm richer now than I ever was with billions, because wealth isn't what you have. It's what you give that can never be taken away. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks and didn't bother wiping them away. I understand now. The notebook, the challenge, everything. You weren't trying to make me homeless. You were trying to make me human again. Exactly, Thomas smiled. Marcus, you don't need to give away your billions like I did. That was my path, not yours. Your path is to use your wealth and power differently. Build companies with conscience. Create success with soul. Make money, but make meaning too. Some of my board members think I've gone soft, Marcus admitted. Thomas laughed. Kindness isn't weakness, Marcus. It takes more strength to be vulnerable than to be invulnerable. More courage to care than to be cold. The strongest leaders are those who lift others up, not push them down. I have something for you too, Marcus said, pulling out an envelope. I've created the Riverside Foundation in your son's name, Michael Riverside. It provides scholarships, mental health support, and family counseling. I've funded it with $50 million to start. Thomas stared at the envelope, his hands shaking. Marcus, you didn't have to. Yes, I did.
Ow.
Your son died wanting time with his father. This foundation will help other fathers learn that lesson before it's too late. It's not about money. It's about making sure Michael's death meant something. Thomas opened the envelope and read the foundation's mission statement. Tears streamed down his weathered face. Thank you, he whispered. You've given my son a legacy I never could. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell around them. Finally, Thomas spoke again. You know why I really gave you that notebook in the coffee shop? Tell me. Because you reminded me of my son. It's not in appearance, but in spirit. Michael was driven, ambitious, desperate to prove himself. He worked himself to exhaustion trying to earn my approval, trying to be like me. And I let him because I didn't know any better. Thomas's voice cracked. Michael had lived. He would have become exactly like I was, successful, wealthy, and miserable. In some strange way, saving you feels like saving the son I lost. Marcus understood then. It wasn't just about him. It was about Thomas healing his own wounds by preventing others from walking his painful path. Your son would be proud of you, Marcus said quietly. You took your tragedy and turned it into transformation for others. It's the ultimate redemption. And you took a stranger's challenge and let it change your life? Thomas replied. That takes humility and courage. Most people I approach reject the notebook immediately. They're too proud, too certain they have everything figured out. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Do we just go our separate ways? Thomas smiled. No, now you become the one who gives out notebooks. When you meet someone like you used to be, someone successful but empty, you share your story. You challenge them like I challenged you. The cycle continues. I'm not sure I'm wise enough for that. Neither was I when I started, Thomas laughed. But wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and being willing to learn. Marcus stood up and Thomas stood with him. They embraced not as billionaire and homeless man, but as two souls who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. Will I see you again? Marcus asked. Maybe, Thomas said mysteriously. I tend to appear when I'm needed. But Marcus, remember, every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, be present, be human. As Thomas walked away into the darkness, Marcus called out one last time, "Thomas, what if I fail? What if I slip back into my old ways?" Thomas turned back, his face illuminated by a streetlight. "Then you start again." That's the beauty of being human, Marcus. We're not defined by our falls. We're defined by how many times we get back up. Marcus stood in the Wellington Foundation headquarters, a new building dedicated entirely to community programs, scholarships, and mental health initiatives. Emma worked as the director, bringing her nonprofit experience to scale. On his desk sat 7 filled notebooks, each page documenting acts of kindness, moments of joy, and real connections. The 8th notebook had just been started that morning. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "My novel got published. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Lunch this week. Another text from Robert. "My daughter just graduated college. She wants to thank you personally for the scholarship. Dinner next Sunday?" And one from Emma. "Love you, Dad. Proud of the man you've become." Marcus smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that no business deal had ever provided. His company was still successful, still profitable, but now it stood for something beyond numbers on a balance sheet. That afternoon, Marcus stopped at the coffee shop for his usual caramel macchiato. A young man in an expensive suit rushed past him, phone glued to his ear. Barking orders at someone, Marcus recognized that walk, that energy, that desperation masked his confidence. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small, worn notebook. "Excuse me, Marcus," said gently, touching the young man's shoulder. "Do you have a moment?" The man turned, annoyed. "I'm very busy. I don't have time for what? For life." Marcus smiled kindly. "I used to be exactly like you. Then someone changed everything with a simple notebook and a challenge." The young man looked at Marcus skeptically. "Who are you?" "Someone who learned that success without purpose is just expensive failure," Marcus replied, pressing the notebook into the man's hand. "Read this. In 3 days, meet me at Riverside Park, bench number 7, at sunset. If you dare." The young man stared at the notebook, then at Marcus. Something in his eyes suggested he might actually come. As Marcus walked away, he thought of Thomas and smiled. The cycle continued. The wisdom passed forward. And somewhere in the city, an old homeless man who was once a billionaire was probably smiling too. That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment, now filled with Emma's photos, his own paintings on the walls, and a piano he played every night. He opened his 8th notebook and wrote, "Today I gave away my first notebook. I don't know if the young man will come to the park, but I planted a seed. That's all any of us can do. Plant seeds of kindness and hope, then trust them to grow." Thomas was right. The things you chase run away. The things you give away come back multiplied. I chased money, and it left me empty. I gave away my pride, my time, and my heart, and they returned as joy, purpose, and love. Not perfect. Some days, I slip into old habits. But each day, I choose again. Choose kindness over cruelty. Choose presence over absence. Choose humanity over profit. My father built an empire. I'm building a legacy. I finally understand the difference. As the sun set over the city, Marcus looked out his window at the millions of lights below. Each light represented a person with dreams, struggles, and a story. He no longer saw numbers or opportunities. He saw people, real, beautiful, complicated people who deserved kindness and respect. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Wellington. This is David Chen. I'm the young man from the coffee shop. I read some in the notebook. I'd like to meet at Riverside Park tomorrow, if the offer still stands." Marcus smiled, feeling the cycle continue. "The offer always stands, David. I'll see you at sunset." As he hung up, Marcus realized the homeless man's secret had never been about giving up wealth. It was about understanding that the richest life isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by who you become and how many lives you touch along the way. The end.